Carmaker Ford announced Tuesday that it's scrapping plans to build a $1.6 billion auto plant in Mexico. Instead, it will bring those jobs back home. Ford will invest $700 million into plants which already exist, many of them in the Rust Belt, creating hundreds of new jobs. Ford's move came just hours after President-elect Trump put out a tweet threatening GM, writing, quote, "General Motors is sending Mexican-made model of Chevy Cruze to U.S. car dealers tax-free across border. Make in USA or pay big border tax." Here to discuss what that back and forth means for Mr. Trump's relationship between the incoming Trump administration and U.S. businesses, John Heilemann is Bloomberg Politics co-managing editor. Jamelle Bouie is a CBS News political analyst and Slate chief political correspondent. And last, certainly not least, is Ann Gearan, a Washington Post national political correspondent. Now, before we get started, I want to play a bit of sound. Here is what the CEO of Ford said earlier today on CBSN about whether the president-elect's use of the bully pulpit on Twitter played a role in their decision.
One of the factors that we look at is what we expect to be a more positive U.S. manufacturing business environment under President-elect Trump, and also looking at the pro-growth policies and reforms, both tax and regulatory reforms, that he's been talking about. So it is a consideration, and it's a vote of confidence that he'll be able to deliver on those things.
Mr. Fields, did you get an opportunity to speak to the president-elect or the vice president-elect at all this morning?
We did have the opportunity this morning to speak to both the president-elect and also the vice president-elect Pence, and we talked about the announcements that we are making today, and they were very pleased that we were investing here in our facilities in Michigan and adding on the jobs and basically adding on to the leadership position that we have here in the U.S. because we are the #1 producer of vehicles in the United States today, and we're the #1 employer of hourly workers here in the United States today.
All right, that's the position of Mark Fields, CEO of Ford. What do you make of that, John?
One of the biggest questions going on right now is Donald Trump's taking a lot of credit for the state of the U.S. economy and for consumer confidence and for creating a favorable climate that's going to let the economy grow at a faster pace than it did in the course of the Obama administration. Hearing this, Mark Fields is not the only corporate CEO right now who is singing a song that Donald Trump will like to hear. To the extent that there are corporate CEOs who believe that the economic climate and the corporate climate going forward in the Trump administration is going to be more favorable than it was over the course of the last 8 years, and is going to cause them to make investment decisions on that basis. That is a huge factor and could play a huge role in terms of Trump's early success. If he's not alone and there are other corporate executives who are going to follow suit, that's just great news for Donald Trump.
Jamelle, what are your thoughts on this notion that there's a more favorable feeling in the big business community here with Donald Trump coming in as the president?
I think one of the things we should consider is that it is not good macroeconomic policymaking to govern this way, to govern by essentially using your public platform to harass companies into making economic decisions. And in fact, when you couple that with what we know about President-elect Trump's entanglements, his business entanglements, his likely conflict of interest, what it begins to look like is a situation where business leaders, their success is not judged based on whether or not they are able in the market, but their political proximity or political allegiance to the Trump administration. And that is a kind of sort of near kleptocratic situation that I think is unprecedented in the United States.